She was first spotted in 1992. By 2064, people said she had gone off her rocker. I don't know. For me, she lived inside her head for way too long. Every day at precisely 2 p.m., she would walk around the city for hours on end, the same route every day. Why she did this, I'm not sure. You can see that she came from a very loving family. A mother with a weird fitness fetish, a grandfather who gave her all the money she wanted, an aspiring mime artist for a brother. I fail to understand how she walked around so much with a wooden leg. Don't ask me why. This film is about speculation and assumption. She was first spotted in 1993. By 2064, people said she had lived an overly successful life. I don't know. For me, she lived in her head way too long. Rumors by 2029 were going around that the secret Bilderberg group devoted 7 minutes of their annual meeting to reading excerpts from her book. You can see that she came from a politically thriving family, a father who gave her everything she asked for, a mother who fought for women's rights, an adopted brother we don't know too much about, and a sister who had a knack for fashion. Her 4th book sold over 1 million copies. In a world full of hypocrisy and fake demeanors, she was celebrated as the literary leader of propaganda, with the power to influence minds with her compelling writing. But what do I know about anything? Remember, I'm just speculating. But what does a world-renowned literary propagandist and a wooden-legged woman have in common? For me, they were two people who had seen too much. Amelia, at precisely 2:10 in the afternoon, sat by herself by the left end of the pond opposite Chèris. The sky that day was clear, the water over the pond bubbly, the wind calm. It was a Sunday. People said Amelia was an extremely well-mannered girl, the type who would always put her napkin on her leg before a meal. Society dictated that young girls eat vegetables. So she came here, her escape, once a week from vegetables and society. Jane, at precisely 2:10 in the afternoon, sat by herself by the right end of the pond. The sky that day was clear, the water over the pond bubbly, the wind calm. It was the same Sunday. People said Jane was an extremely well-read girl. She only ever read the most intellectual pieces of writing. But Jane secretly loved reading The Hollywood Reporter. Society dictated that young girls read intellectual magazines. So she came here, her escape, once a week, from intellectuals and society. I can only speculate and assume that Jane and Amelia knew about each other's presence. It might be the second reason they both came here. what do I know?
Not a word passes between us, not because we have nothing to say, but because we don't need to say anything.
Amelia and Jane on a warm Wednesday afternoon at precisely 3:30 p.m. were swinging in the park together. But people said that young girls should not swing in the park with other young girls. So these two swing in a part of the park at a time of the day when no one else would see them together. After all, the Bible calls it abomination. So does Mrs. Fletcher from the lookout tower across the fountain. Although Alfred Kinsey might call it a relatively inconspicuous 1 out of 100 probability, Amelia and Jane talk about
color of rainbows,
V-neck lines,
and other absurd topics.
While they look happier than I've ever seen them, I can only speculate and assume what they feel when they swing together. People said Amelia and Jane were spotted together at the bus station at Connery Street. That was the last we saw of Amelia for a while. Now, you do remember that Jane came from a family of political leaders and aficionados. Maybe this disappearance had something to do with that. Speculation. Or maybe she just flipped a coin and decided to get a tan in Beirut or Bali. Assumption. At the time, we could only wonder.
You know, they said we had a rough phone call. We really didn't have a rough phone call, did we? And we were talking about this phone call. The media was saying, what do you think about the phone call? You didn't really hang up. No, we had actually a very nice call, right? So many different conflicts. There are so many conflicts that we fought on and worked on together. And by the way, in all cases, succeeded on.
President Putin plays a good offensive game on the ice and on the world stage. And in this case,
find out that Amelia was abducted. But the kidnapper gave her back because her family refused to pay the ransom. Who cared about young girls who read The Hollywood Reporter and hated vegetables? people say the family took down the swing and no young girls play there anymore. But who knows what actually happened? All we can know for sure is that by 2064, people said Amelia had gone off her rocker and that Jane had lived an overly successful life. Remember, this film was about speculation and assumption.